Well, good morning. Yesterday was Houston announcing the offshore portion of it. The president, in his executive order, has unleashed the offshore, and my job as a secretary to do the follow-on secretarial orders. Big day if you're from Houston and you like offshore. So the issue before us is the president has said energy dominance. That's different than energy independence. And energy dominance, there's pieces to it. One is, up front, I'm a Teddy Roosevelt. I don't believe in the idea of transferring or selling public land. Roosevelt's idea that our public property belongs to us all. And as the Secretary of Interior, I have a great obligation to make sure, as the steward of our public lands, to make sure that we have value on it, that it's multiple use. And I understand the difference between mirror, and there are some lands that are best kept as an observer, where a man's an observer, lightest footprint. But a lot of our lands are in the multiple use area where they are for the benefit and enjoyment of the people. And as the steward of our greatest lands, my job is to make sure the public is at the table, that the public has a voice, that we are good stewards of our property in perpetuity. I am one that believes with technology that it is not a trade-off between creating jobs, energy development, and good stewardship in environmentally conscious and responsible ways. As a former geologist in my life, I graduated from the University of Oregon, and as a geologist I was told we'd be out of fossil fuel absolutely in 2003. You know, God's got a sense of humor. He gave us fracking. We're not going to be out of fossil fuels for a while. But using fossil fuels with the technology we have requires guidance. It requires partnerships. It requires a plan to make sure that when we go in and use our public lands, we do it in a responsible way. The reclamation plans make sense. Tribes. As a former congressman, I represented, Montana's a pretty big state. It's from here to Chicago plus 2 miles. That's how big Montana is. As a congressman, I also had the great responsibility and honor of representing what I think are the warrior tribes of the Great Plains, the Sioux and the Blackfeet and the Crow and the Assiniboine. And looking at it from a view of now the Secretary of Interior, what are our goals? One is sovereignty should mean something. And we throw that word around a lot, sovereignty, but what does it actually mean? And I think we need a discussion on that. As I look at the 1940 or 1934 Indian Reorganization Act, is that I think it's time for a dialogue. And as the steward of our Indian trust lands, what are we going to be 100 years from now? Is there an off-ramp? If I offered today that the tribe would have a choice of leaving the Indian trust lands and becoming a corporation, 501c3, another entity, some tribes would take it. And quite frankly, as BIA, I'm not sure in many cases we're value added. I'm not sure that we're providing the services in education in a regulatory framework that promotes self-determination. Quite frankly, I'm not sure we are. And we need this dialogue. Yesterday in Houston, I talked about trust. As if you go out west, Department of Interior, which is Fish and Wildlife, and our Park Service and BLM, we're not well liked in some places. And we're not trusted in some places. And that bothers me because it's a breach. So how do we restore trust? Some of it is making sure that we put our resources in the front line where they belong, because these cost-cutting measures what they've done is they've rolled up our front line and they've regionalized skills and people are no longer in the communities they serve. A lot of times the decisions that should be made instantly in the front line have to go all the way up through bureaucracy layers, all the way up to my desk on a decision that should be made instantly in the field. And the BIA has become bureaucratic. And I go down the halls, and they're good people. They care. They're good individual people. But the system of desk after desk after desk of people that can say no, but find someone who can say yes. So we have to have a dialogue, I think, on what we should be as a department 100 years from now. And the relationship between the tribes and our government. As sovereign nations, we need to be an advocate. We need to be helpful. We need to be a partner. And the decision to develop your natural resources as a tribe, that's your decision and your decision alone. My job is to make sure that if you want to get out of your way so you can do it, to be helpful, to be the advocate in your corner. So sovereignty is a word that has meaning. And consultation is not a last-minute idea. Consultation is being at the table at the very beginning when a project is proposed. And that's why the reorganization, we're looking at it hard, how to get our regions and realign them and put more resources in the front line. So we're embedded in communities, and we are in some places, but I think it's helpful to be the volunteer football coach or the volleyball and be embedded in the communities so when decisions are made from the grassroots up, that we're all a part and a partner, rather than line of being an advocate or an adversary. So I'm excited. I'm excited as the secretary. I didn't have any aspirations or expectations of being the secretary. I am, and it's a great honor. But I'm excited for the opportunity. And the president, I can tell you, is a great boss. He does not micromanage. He gives me a call once a week or so. He asks me what's going on, what does he need to do as far as supporting us. And there is no person I know that is more committed to jobs and making sure the American dream is available for everybody. And my job as a secretary, in particular with the tribes, because I think our service provided over the years has been underwhelming, underachievable. And we have to have a conversation of how to do a pivot and turn. If we're not value added, we should get out of the way. And that's where I think a honest discussion of 1934 Indian Reorganization Act is time. It's time to sit down at a table and discuss what we should be. And again, the decision is going to be yours, because that's the way that we're going to lead during the Trump administration. So anyway, the opportunity is there. Lastly, infrastructure. I talked a lot about it. Is that my priority on looking at where we spend our money as the Department of Interior. And you may know that in 2008, we made $15.5 billion more just in offshore than we did last year. So somehow our revenue dropped $15.5 billion a year. And as you open up the books, there's two sides. There's the revenue side and the expense side. So $15.5 billion. That's enough to pay for the backlog of the National Park Service and still have enough money to pay for almost every backlog of Indian schools across the nation. That's what we dropped in revenue. So we're going to be focusing on revenue, as we should. We're going to be focusing on how to accelerate our ability to move either coal or natural gas or gas, so we as a nation can have the infrastructure to be dominant if we choose. And why does energy matter anyway? Well, it matters if you're going to have a job. In some tribes, coal or energy is the only job. And I'll quote the former chairman of the Crow: "A war on coal is a war on the Crow people." because that's the only job available. The Navajo, very similar. And as a former congressman, I can tell you what I've learned is the tribes themselves are not monolithic. Even among the Montana tribes, there are distinct cultural differences between great tribes. And one size doesn't fit all. And so the dialogue between the tribes, the aspirations of one tribe or another, that's the tribe's business. Again, my job is to make sure the infrastructure, so you can take your coal, so you can move your oil, so you can move your energy as you choose, is appropriate, that we have a reclamation plan in place, and make sure we're doing it in the most responsible, safe, and environmentally conscious way. So if we all do that together, I think the next couple of years is going to be great. So again, thank you. Also, just a reminder on such things is that this Friday is a National Day of Awareness for the missing and murdered Native American Indian, for women and girls. And the bill that was put forth honored Hannah Harris. She was a member of the Northern Cheyenne tribe who was murdered viciously in 2013. So I realize it's energy, but I think this Friday is a good remembrance of that as well. So my door is always open. Come visit me. I do have the best office in Washington, D.C., just so you know. But I look forward to a relationship of trust and partnership. And the bottom line is this. Interior, we want to be the advocate. We want to be the YEP department. We want to be the department that is on your side, that has your back. And just as I did as a Navy SEAL, I'll make that commitment. Nobody will work harder for you than our team. So thank you, and God bless.